Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. And this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. This is Tuesday, November 19th, one of my most favorite days in my whole life. It's the day that the joy of my life, my beautiful young daughter, was born. And so we're celebrating her birthday today. Happy birthday, Caitlin. And it's Tuesday, November 19th, coming to you right here from the Rock Health and Wellness Studios. And Lubbock, Texas, we're coming to you on 98.7 Walk by Faith, 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation, 987radio.com, and all of our social media pages. Hope you guys had a great day. Hope you enjoyed last night's show. I know it was a little bit hard to get through, but maybe it made a little bit of an impact in your life, and I hope today things are going your way. So we're going to talk about something tonight that's just totally different. We're going to talk about apples. If you guys, I was in the grocery store. I had an opportunity to go spend about 3 or 4 hours in the grocery store on Saturday, and I just walked through every single aisle looking for seed oils and all of the ingredients and all the food. And so I got in over there in the produce section, and I was just looking at all the different kinds of produce. And, sometimes you just forget about all the stuff that's in a grocery store. I don't know if you guys have ever done that. Just taking time where you didn't have anything else to do and just walk through the entire thing. And so I got over there to the apples, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And so sometimes it's just kind of funny that it's just like, you never even noticed how many different apples there were. And I've studied apples before. I mean, I've looked at them, not to the depth that I've studied them in the last 48 hours, but I was like, dadgum, that's a lot of different apples. So I thought, man, I want to do a show on apples just so I can learn something about apples. So that's what we're doing tonight. We're going to talk about apples. I think it'll be fun. It'll be really educational. You guys will probably like it, and maybe we'll learn something about them. And there's a bunch of stuff I've learned about them. So we'll talk about apples. We'll talk about the origins of apples, how we got apples, where they came from, how they got to America, all that sort of stuff. And then we'll talk about the sugar of the apples, how they apply to our diet. Are they good for us? Are they not good for us? All that sort of thing. What about apple juice? What about what are some of the ways we could counteract the sugars? And then we'll get into it as we go from there. So, yeah. But first, I got a couple things. Really interesting today. 3 patients. One guy came in today with a trash can because his vertigo was so bad that he was afraid he was going to get nauseous in the office. So he brought him a little trash can with him into the office. And I was like, well, you can bring that in, but you could be twirling it on the way out, I hope. And he was better on his way out. And then I had another guy a brand new patient that I took care of that was dealing with that as well. So, and then another lady that I adjusted last week that came back this week and just said what an awesome week she had, because she made some really, really great points. Very, very intelligent interpretation of her chiropractic experience. It was super great the way she said it, because she said I've had so much energy this week, and I've had so much energy because I haven't had to fight against being dizzy. She said I didn't have to use any energy just to keep myself upright, and it just unloaded me with all of the energy. She said I just had so much extra energy that I've been able to do so much stuff, and I've been able to exercise this week, and it's just been so wonderful. She said it's just been so wonderful not to be dizzy. And she made she said, I was telling my kids, she said it's a lot like a chain of Christmas lights, that one bulb just went off and then all the rest of the lights went out. And so you just like twisted that bulb just right, and then all of a sudden it just filled up, all the rest of the lights just came on. And I was like, dude, that is so awesome. I said, you should be in a chiropractic commercial. I said, that was so great right there, because that is exactly a great analogy as to what happens when you get adjusted. You've got subluxation. Subluxation means interference in your nervous system, and you've got subluxation. It's just like having that one light bulb that you, and I know a lot of you guys are putting light bulbs on your house, Christmas lights and all that stuff, and it's a great time of year for us to remember all this, right? You just, that one light bulb goes out, and it just shuts down the rest of the string, and that's kind of what happens with our spines. If our spines aren't working properly, we've got some sort of subluxation somewhere in our nervous system. We will end up with it just it sets us off, and then you get adjusted, and you reset that energy pathway, and then all of a sudden, wow, it just opens up all the light all the way through. And her statement of having so much energy was really awesome. And that's really why you get adjusted, right? Because we can't control the external environment. We can't control all of the wind and the rain and the stress and the politics and the schools and all the things that go along with that cause us external stressors. But we can, to a certain extent, control our internal environment. And one of the ways that we control our internal environment is by getting adjusted. It's keeping your nervous system healthy is really a great idea, as far as controlling that internal environment. We talk about all the time: exercise, sleep, diet, all those things that go along with it, right? Getting our spiritual life right, loving the Lord with all your heart. All those things are important. And to control internal stressors, to keep the internal stressors as low as possible, so that we can handle her external stressors. And that's what she did. She could handle her. None of the things changed in her external world. She had the same family members, she had the same jobs, and all the same things that she had to do during the week. But it was a way better week this week because internally her body was working great. So I was so happy for her. And it was fantastic. So just want to let you know about that. Sometimes it's dizziness, vertigo, all those things that some of you guys deal with that you don't really understand, that chiropractic care can help. Wanted to share that story with you. Had a real interesting thought this afternoon. And for you guys that are just joining us, I see a few of you. We're going to talk about apples here in just a second. So stick around. It'll be fun. And not the computer, but the fruit. I was adjusting a guy, and we were saying something. I was talking about buying my first car for my granddad, and then I said, yeah, and then my grandmother, she was in a nursing home with Lou Gehrig's disease, with ALS. And then I thought, and then my granddad, he passed away from Alzheimer's disease. And then I thought, and my dad passed away with complications of poor arthritis, horrible arthritis. And then my grandmother passed away from, she had emphysema and died in the middle of a breathing treatment. And I was thinking about all those people, my uncle and my father-in-law, and just thinking about all the people and that have died in my lifetime. My brother-in-law with a dadgum brain tumor, and I just thought all of those people, all of those things. I wonder if any of those things could have been changed. I wonder if we could have made things better by being healthier. If any of those people would have been healthier, would it have been a different outcome in the way that it worked? I really think it is. I really think it would have been, and I think it will be for us, because I think we're going to make those changes and do the things that we need to do. So it was just kind of an interesting thought, because I was in the middle of that adjustment. We were talking about it, and it just kind of stacked. You know how your brain just adds one after the other, and that's kind of what happened. It just stacked up all of a sudden. It was like, wow. So that was one thing. Article right here. I'm just going to go over it quickly. Okay, I'm gonna. This is that moment that you pre-frame what you're about to say, because you know what you're about to say is going to stir some feathers with some people. I don't care, but I'm just telling you. I want to pre-frame it for you. This article right here is a systematic review of autopsy findings in deaths after COVID-19 vaccination. This is an abstract. This was Peter McCullough came out in peer-reviewed public health science. Came out in Science, Public Health Policy, and the Law. Peter McCullough is one of the world's top researchers in his field. He is one of the top medical doctors in all of the world as far as what he does and the things that he knows. So he's quite advanced, and he knows how to do peer review stuff, and he knows how to do studies. And so it's that time of year. One of my guys came in today and said he went to see had to go pick up something at the pharmacist for he's dealing with some things, and he went in there, and the pharmacist said, "Hey, wait." The lady said, "You got to talk to the pharmacist first before you leave." And the pharmacist said, "Hey, we got your shots ready." And he's like, "What do you mean I got my shots ready?" And he said, "Well, you got 5 shots coming: your flu shot, your COVID vaccine, your shingles shot, something else." And he's like, "No, I'm not taking any of those shots." And the pharmacist, they're already paid for. And he's like, "I don't care," which is really interesting. Why are they already paid for? Who paid for them? What is that all about, right? Anyway, I'm not getting into that. Just want to read this. I'm going to read the abstract because why? Because I talk about things that create interference in your nervous system. That's why. I talk about things that create interference in your nervous system, right? If I said donuts create interference in your nervous system, I could talk about donuts all day long. If I said sodas create interference in your nervous system, I could talk about sodas all day long. If I was talking about you're not getting enough sleep, I just was listening to Huberman on the way back from Littlefield today. He was talking about one of the things that's vital for brain health is to make sure you get enough sleep every night. And it's like, look, if I was talking about the things that disrupt sleep that causes interference in your nervous system, I'd be able to talk about that too, right? Well, I'm talking about something. I'm not talking about whether or not you should or should not take a shot. I'm simply talking about things that cause interference in your nervous system. And according to Dr. McCullough, there's one of them right here. The rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines combined with a high number of adverse events reports have led to concerns over possible mechanisms of injury, including systemic lipid nanoparticle and mRNA distribution, spike protein-associated tissue damage, thrombogenicity, blood clots, immune system dysfunction, and carcinogenicity. Cancers. The aim of the systematic review is to investigate the possible causal links between COVID-19 vaccine administration and death using autopsies post-mortems. The results. We identified 678 studies, and after screening for our inclusion criteria, included 44 papers that contained 325 autopsy cases and 1 organ-restricted autopsy case, the heart. The mean age of death was 70.4 years. The most implicated organ system among cases was the cardiovascular, 49%, followed by respiratory problems, multiple organ systems. 3 or more organ systems were affected in 21 cases. Conclusion: the consistency seen among cases in this review with known COVID-19 vaccine mechanisms of injury and death, coupled with autopsy confirmation by physicians' adjudication, suggests there is a high likelihood of causal link between COVID-19 vaccines and death. Further urgent investigation is required for the purpose of clarifying our findings. Just a study that I'm reading from right here, published in Science, Public Health Policy, and the Law. And you guys can find it. You can go Google it. It is Volume 5, 2019 through 2024. It's peer-reviewed public health science, 11/17/2024. So just sometimes you just need to know that there's other sides out there, right? Sometimes you need to know that all of the propaganda and the BS that you get told is not always true, and it's not always real, and it might not be good for you. So I'll just leave that at that. We're talking about apples tonight, right? Apples and apples, right? One last thing, got to address it. It's on my mind. It irritates me. But there's some things I just want to say about it for you guys that haven't seen it. A lot of you guys have seen it. This is a picture that was on Twitter, X. And I appreciate the heck out of everybody in that picture right there. But this picture, and I don't know if I can make it any better. Yeah, this is Elon Musk with President Trump, Donald Trump Jr., RFK Jr., and the I don't know, the Speaker of the House or whoever that is back there, and they're sitting on a plane, and I'm sure they've had a long day of work, right? I'm sure those guys are traveling from one place to the next. I'm sure that they got a lot on their mind, and they probably put in 16 hours today, and they probably didn't get any sleep and all the rest of that stuff. And you know our president likes to eat McDonald's, so that's what they're having. They're having McDonald's. They're just eating their McDonald's French fries and their hamburgers and the ketchup and all the stuff that goes along with it. And I looked at Donald Trump Jr. and he made a post and he said, "Eating healthy starts tomorrow." You as a listener of this show, you as a person listening to this show tonight, you have to understand the world is against your health. You have to understand that there is such a massive there's such a massive purposeful campaign history of all of this stuff that is trying to keep you sick. These guys, not one of them said, "No, I don't eat that crap." Not even RFK. Like he's like, no, not one of them. You know why? Because the president put the pressure on him. And the president is not going to change because he believes his way is correct, which is fine. He can believe his way is correct. But the president-elect. But what could he be better if his nervous system was functioning better? Could he be better if his liver was functioning better? Could he be better if his weight was a little bit under control? Could he be better at what he's doing as an individual? That's the thing, right? He doesn't think so. He doesn't care about it. He doesn't think there's any value in it. So he's going to do that. And now what he's going to do is he's going to pressure those people around him. And those people around him are just going to do whatever he does because no one wants to rock the boat. And it's like, sometimes you got to rock the boat. And that's what, when you see a picture like that, you have to understand, look, there's a big, giant conglomeration that's trying to make you sick. I'm talking to you. If you're looking at me on social media, I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to the world. I'm not trying to be Joe Rogan on my podcast. I'm talking to you as an individual person. I'm talking to you guys on the radio tonight. I'm talking about you guys driving down the highway tonight. I'm talking about you guys that are going to listen to me after a while or see this show after a while. And you're going to think to yourself, really? Like the leaders of our country, that's what they're going to do for supper? Like that's the best they got? And it's like, okay, yeah. And I know everybody's going to have an opinion because there's 8 billion people on the planet and everybody's got an opinion on nutrition. But you see it. That's what I'm talking about. So I just read an article. We're going to get to apples. Don't run off. But I just read an article about the COVID shot, which everybody told us was great. The president stood up in front of everybody and said, if you get the shot, you will not pass COVID, blah, 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 all that lie. All of it was a lie. And President Trump started it. He's the first person that started all this idea about how fast we can get vaccines to the people. That was all a lie. The whole thing was a lie. The local people lied, the state people lied, the national people lied, and they're going to. That's just the way that it works. Doesn't mean they're bad people. Doesn't mean that they're intentionally trying to hurt you. But you have to discern the difference. You as a person have to discern the difference between what is healthy for me and my family and what is not. And who am I going to be able to trust when I want to go get the answer to some of this stuff? And the guy that might give you a really truthful answer about one thing might turn around and be contaminating the answer on something else, right? Maybe I'm one of those guys too. I'm trying not to be. But I just want it to be known that I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you as an individual person. I'm hoping that we can make this world better and that this ridiculousness will stop. Don't do that. It's not healthy to supply yourself with garbage. And don't tell me you have to do it. I've done it. I've finally, after 50 years, figured out how to do it. And for 30-something straight months, I haven't haven't budged for 31 months, 32 months, whatever it is now. It's like, are you kidding me? I've gone to Vegas and not budged. One of my guys asked me, "How you doing on your sugar deal?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm doing great." So even through your birthday, yeah, even through my birthday, even if I'm on the plane with the president, I'm not going to eat that, right? I'm not going to. It's like I don't care if I didn't have anything to eat, I would just fast. I just love the Lord with all my heart and fast, right? That would get me by. So anyway, I said it, I saw it. Let's move on. I know you guys are dying to talk about apples. You guys ever studied apples? You ever like really broke it down like apples? It's crazy. The apple is an interesting fruit. Okay, so let's just go through it. Let's just talk about some. I mean, there's like the ones that I just went and I had a whole list of them. Granny Smith, Envy, Cosmic, Crisp, Macintosh, Honey Crisp, Sugar Bee, Royal Gala, Red Delicious, Pink Lady, Gala. I guess that's Gala apples. Fuji, like, and that's just a couple because I still had a couple more of them on there, and I was like, man, why are there so many apples in the grocery store? And what are they? Are these good for me? Are they not good for me? They got too much sugar in them? What's the deal with apples? Well, apples are really interesting. So I'm just going to read. I'm going to read a little bit of this to you, and we're just going to walk through it together. And we got lots of time, so we'll get all this done. But a brief history of apples from ancient origins to modern cultivation. You might be interested to know that apples originated from Central Asia's Tian Shan Mountains, specifically Kazakhstan, where they were collected as far back as 10,000 years ago, apparently. Ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans mastered early cultivation techniques. Apples were crucial to prehistoric ecosystems. That's crazy. Like that's something that we should pay attention to right there. Apples have been around for a long, long time, right? Long time. They were crucial to prehistoric ecosystems, relying on megafauna, big animals, for seed dispersal. So the big animals would eat the apple, then they would the manure that from the big animals would pass the seed along. So the animal would eat the apple and go over there somewhere and then drop its manure, and then the manure had the seed in it, and then now we get another apple tree. And so that was one of the ways that it kind of spread itself. Early grafting methods by Greeks and Romans led to the diverse apple varieties seen today. Modern challenges include climate change and maintaining genetic diversity. There is a fascinating exploration to unfold about this iconic fruit. So it's really interesting to study the apple. Fast forward through history, and you'll find that these wild apples eventually crossed paths with human innovation. They were cultivated and domesticated, transforming their wild origins into the apples we cherish today. Genetic studies reveal that modern cultivated apples are hybrids of at least 4 wild populations. So they did a study in somewhere in here, and there was 14,000 different types of apples. Let me see when that was. And the reason for that is that apples are really interesting, and you guys may or may not know this, but I didn't know it. Sometimes I know that some of you guys are way smarter than I am, and y'all got way more in 1905. Y'all got way more education than I do on some things. Like one of my ladies told me, there's just so much you don't know. And I was like, that is so true. There's so much I don't know. But I'm working on it every day. And now I know more about apples than I did before. But this one right here, this was by 1905, with 300 years of apple seed planting, there were over 14,000 varieties of apples growing in the United States, according to W.H. Reagan in Nomenclature of the Apple. This tremendous variety as one fruit is due to the incredible genetic potential of apples in and some very thirsty pioneers. So an apple will not reproduce itself. So an apple tree will not reproduce itself. So if you have an apple tree and you pick an apple from that tree and you take the seed out of that apple and you replant that seed, you will not get the same apple tree that you got from that seed, because there's so much genetic variation in the seed that you won't get the same one. So what that in my studies here that I in these last couple of days, it's been that what happens is you plant this seed and then you wait 10 years for this apple tree to get good enough to be to start giving you apples, and then you pick one of those apples and it's not even close to what you had before. There's so much genetic variation of it, and in the pollination of the tree itself, and the way that the tree actually reproduces, it has a mechanism inside of it, an enzyme inside of it that keeps that. It will just shut down fertilization if it seems that it's at all itself. So it only mixes with other types of trees, other trees that are not itself. That's why they get all this variety of trees, and it's been really cool because it's kept all the genetics. Hey, dang, we're at a break. It's kept all the genetics going for all these thousands of years. So when we get back, we'll talk more about this, the sugar content, whether it's good for you, how you can eat it, and keep yourself from getting too much sugar. So you guys stick around with us. We'll be right back. Sorry, it's the break snuck up on me right there. Yeah, so these trees came from Central Asia in this particular Kazakhstan area. And it says here, as you investigate the ancient cultivation practices of apples, you'll find that these methods stretch back thousands of years, shaping the fruit we enjoy today. Archaeological evidence reveals that apples have been cultivated, like I said, for a long time. This long history of apple cultivation has been seen in a range of creative techniques and cultural exchanges. The Egyptian orchards. The ancient Egyptians planted apple orchards along the Nile Delta, marking some of the earliest known efforts in apple cultivation. These practices laid foundations for future agricultural advancements. The Greek grafting, 800 BC, the Greeks perfected grafting techniques. Now that was what I learned. If you want the same tree, you got to graft it. So you got to take the whatever part of the tree that you love. If it's giving you the kind of apples that you want, you got to take that part and then you got to graft it into a root system that's already going, and in order to get the same exact tree. Interesting. Which allowed for the propagation of desirable traits and improvements in fruit quality. This method guaranteed that new apples trees bore fruit identical to the parent tree. So that's the grafting part. And if you want to get an identical tree, you got to graft it. You can't just plant the seed from it and expect to get the same one. You might get a totally different tree. Isn't that interesting? It's almost like kids or something. Roman innovations. Romans introduced apple orchards to Britain using grafting and selective breeding to improve apple size and sweetness. These practices fundamentally changed how apples were grown and consumed. And then the Silk Road exchange. The Silk Road played an essential role in spreading an array of apples varieties, which led to hybridization and the development of larger, more fruitful fruits. This exchange showcases the impact of trade in ancient cultures. This apple's been around for a long time. Hey everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We are talking about apples tonight. So, what about apples? Where do they come from? How did they get here? How did they get to the United States? Who's the one? What about this Johnny Appleseed dude? You might not be old enough. Some of you younger guys, if there's any younger people that watch this show, you might not be. Y'all remember Johnny Appleseed? Like, what the heck was that all about, right? This guy went around this we'll get to it in a second, but uh, he went around his whole life just planting orchards all over the place. And he didn't really care if the apples tasted good because he wasn't going to eat them. He was going to put them in apple cider. I thought that was kind of interesting. So, um, when planting America's roots in the colony of Jamestown, John Smith was pleasantly surprised by the health and vigor of tree fruits rooting in the soil and remarked, "Peaches, apples, apricots, and figs prosper exceedingly." It was 1607, and Captain John Smith had brought 104 settlers to an unknown climate to establish the colony of Jamestown. In planting for a hungry mouse, the colonists brought along a selection of Europe's best livestock and planting stock, including apple seeds and saplings. To their great fortune, many crops, including apples, thrived in the land of new settlement. As the colonies grew, so did the apple orchards. First governor of Virginia, William Berkeley, declared every planter, for every 500 acres deeded him, enclose a quarter acre near his dwelling house for orchards and gardens. Now, that's some leadership. Think about that for a second. The governor said, "Hey, y'all, for every 500 acres that you get, put yourself an orchard and a garden close to the house." As a result, the popularity of apples grew over the next 200 years in Virginia, then in the 13 colonies and beyond. With such popularity, how were these apples consumed? Did an apple a day keep the doctor away, or was it a pint of cider? The reason they made a lot of cider was because, number one, they didn't have clean water. So the cider gave them an opportunity to have something that they felt might be bacterial free. Number two, you can take a nasty apple that's not red, ripe, and delicious, or not a Fuji apple that's full of sugar or all that sort of thing. You can take one of those apples that just would grow on these random orchards, because the apples didn't have enough because you can't reproduce them, right? If you just plant seeds, you may think about this. If you just take a seed from an apple and you go out and dig a hole and plant an apple seed, according to the research, not according to me, but according to the research, if you just plant that apple seed, you could get any form of the apple for the last 10,000 years, or however long there's been apples, right? Like, you could get any combination of anything all the way. Like, it's going to come back from those four original apples way back into Central Asia back in the day. So you might be getting something that doesn't taste all that great. And the darker the skin, the less taste that it has. So sometimes they would breed those darker apples so that just for the cider, or try to get them to go for the cider. But that's just kind of, I thought that was fascinating, really. I mean, who knew? Up until Prohibition, an apple grown in America was far less likely to be eaten than to wind up in a barrel of cider, writes Michael Pollan in The Botany of Desire. In rural areas, cider took the place of not only wine and beer, but coffee, tea, juice, and even water. For poor settlers with a homestead orchard, producing fermented cider from apples for long-term storage was the best beverage staple. When stored long-term, cider was safer than water because fermentation had the ability to kill and inhibit the growth of pathogenic microbes. The only water safe to drink in the frontier was boiled. Routine boiling would have been a resource-heavy and time-intensive task. Can you imagine boiling water in August? No thanks. Yeah, so that's a big point with health altogether, right? A lot of that stuff, a lot of the stuff that was done was because of the scenario that they were in, and that's where a lot of sickness came from too. A lot of sickness came from the fact that we didn't have running water or clean water to drink, which caused us not to have indoor plumbing, which caused us not to have sanitation, which caused us to be sick. And in the third world countries where they use rivers as bathrooms, they have a lot of that same problem, even still today. But in the places that they don't, then that we have um, there's way more health going on today than there used to be in the past. So that's enough. I mean, that's fascinating history to me. I actually did get a teaching field of history back in the day, so I love the I love learning stuff like that. I mean, I've been walking by apples in the grocery store for 54 years. I never one time understood where they came from. Like I never did a book report on apples or talked about what's going on with an apple or if they came from Central Asia or any of that. I didn't know anything about breeding an apple. I still don't know anything about breeding an apple. You farmers are probably like, this boy doesn't know what he's talking about, and that's true. I don't. Just sharing it. I just learned it in the last 48 hours on that stuff. But here's some of the things I do know about apples, and we should talk about them. So there's different kinds of sugar, and one of the things that you want to know is you want to know the difference between glucose and fructose and sucrose, and that's something that we've talked about lots of times on this show, but we haven't talked about it in the form of necessarily strictly with apples. So fructose is fruit sugar, and that's kind of how you can remember it. That fructose, we've got glucose, and every cell in the body uses glucose. When you get glucose in your body, it's like your starches, right? So like you eat potatoes or beans or rice, and you get those starches. What starches basically are starches are just little rings of glucose stuck together over and over again. That's why like white potatoes makes your blood sugar go up. Rice makes your blood sugar go up really quickly because your body has enzymes. Your saliva has enzymes that starts breaking down that starch. Your stomach will kind of kill that enzyme for a second, and then as soon as you get to the small intestine, bam, here comes that enzyme again, and then because it's released by the pancreas, so you got the same amylase-ish stuff in your salivary glands, in your saliva that breaks it down, and then it gets to the small intestine and it breaks it down again coming from the pancreas. So glucose is used by all the cells of the body, but fructose is only metabolized in the liver because fructose is toxic. Fructose is toxic. Now, when God makes fructose, he wraps it in fiber, lots and lots of fiber. So if we have this apple and we have some fructose in this apple, we all know that fructose in an apple is wrapped up in all kinds of fiber. So you eat that apple and you're going to start to break down. You got to break down all of that in order to get that in your bloodstream. But I want to show you a quick little video. And you guys on the radio might not be able to hear this. And so just bear with me, and I hope you guys can hear it. But here's my guy, Justin Richards, on Instagram. So let me play this right here.
Today I'm testing this Honeycrisp apple, and I'm going to test some other apples to see which is the best for my blood sugar. This is a medium-sized organic Honeycrisp apple. It's got about 95 calories, 25 grams of carbohydrates, and about 5 grams of fiber. Honeycrisp apples are my favorite type of apple. They're very sweet, and I do know they're a little higher in sugar than other varieties, so I want to see what this does to my blood sugar. All right, it's been a couple of hours since I've had the apple. Let's have a look at the glucose monitor to see what happens.
And he gets a blood sugar spike right there.
That went up 34 milligrams, which is to be expected. These Honeycrisp apples are pretty sweet. And that's
to get that right there, okay? But then he comes back, and in just a minute, because he's got so many of these on there. If you guys want to know about blood sugar, it's really great. He really does a good job. But
let's see what apples and almond butter do to my blood
listen here
sugar.
now. He
This is
says, okay,
one
what about putting
Honeycrisp
some almond
apple
butter on
with
these
some
apples?
natural unsweetened almond butter. I've tested the Honeycrisp apple by itself before, but I get a lot of requests to do it with almond butter. Let's give it a try.
And then let's see what happens.
All right, it's been a couple of hours since I've had the apple and almond butter. Before we look at the results, let's have a look at the apple by itself.
spike.
I did this a little while back. You can see I had an elevation in my blood sugar, or a blood sugar spike, by 34 milligrams. Now let's look at today's results with the added almond butter. And you can see here that the elevation in my blood sugar only went.
The same apple took the blood sugar content down because of the fats and the protein that was in the almond butter. So the way we eat food and the things that we're getting from that apple, there's a lot of nutrients in the apple, but it would really, so many times you got to answer the question, what are you trying to control for? When we're talking about food, what is it that you're trying to control for? Are you trying to control for toxins? Are you trying to control for 6:3 ratio? Are you trying to control for insulin? Are you trying to control for blood sugar consistency throughout the day? What are you as an individual person trying to control for? So if you are trying to control for insulin control, like the two things that we're looking at, right? 6:3 ratio and insulin control. Those are two things that we're going to want to control. So in this particular case, what's happening is that the fats and the protein from the almond butter helps control that sugar from the apple. But the sugar from the apple is, some of it is getting converted. Some of that fructose gets converted. Some of that fructose gets delayed in its absorption because of the bacteria in the gut. It'll actually calm some of that fructose down in the gut. But but let me go ahead and go on, because the combination of this together, the combination of glucose and fructose together, is what's called sucrose, and that's white sugar. Okay? So any of your fruits you're going to get fructose from. But any of your starches, or if you just get white sugar, that's where your glucose is going to come from. So sucrose, when you have table sugar, any added sugars to your diet is going to be in the form, most likely it's going to be in the form of just plain sucrose when you see that. So anything that you read, anything, let me see, I got a can of soda pop right here. So this soda pop says total carbs 25 grams, total sugar 25 grams, including 25 grams of added sugar. So when I look on here, when I look on this, it's not going to differentiate whether or not, I said that kind of confusing. If it's in a box, it's probably got sugar. If it's added sugar, like a cracker or a Pop-Tart or something like that. If it's in a can, you're probably going to get fructose. The added sugar in this one is high fructose corn syrup. There's not any sucrose in this. So there's not any sucrose in here. And high fructose corn syrup is 54% or 55%. High fructose corn syrup is 55% fructose. Table sugar is 50-50. Now, when you eat table sugar, that's going to break apart, and that's going to immediately, glucose is going to be used by all your cells, and your brain really likes glucose, and your brain likes it really wants it. Like, it really wants it. It'll give you some dopamine if you take it. It'll make you feel really good about yourself, right? But the fructose part of it, that fructose is all going to go over to your liver, and this is what I learned from Dr. Lustig years ago. That fructose is going to go to your liver. There's where your fatty liver disease is going to come from. I had this conversation this week. One of my ladies said, here's what she said to me. She said, my medical doctor told me years ago, she's a older than 65 age lady, and she said, my medical doctor told me years ago that fatty liver disease from alcohol will go away, but fatty liver disease that is not from alcohol won't go away. That's what she told me. Now, whether or not she got that right, or she was confused, or she was 100% right, I don't know. But that's not true. That's not a true statement. But you can get fatty liver disease, and you can get cirrhosis of the liver from eating sugar, not drinking alcohol, or from things like this that have high fructose corn syrup. So this 25 grams of added sugar is 25 grams of fructose, high fructose corn syrup, which is going to go straight. This is going straight to the liver, right? That 55% of that's fructose is going straight to the liver. And now what we're going to end up with is fatty liver disease and all the damaging effects of inflammation and everything that goes along with that. Okay? So that's what we get out of a can of soda. All right? But when we eat an apple, we're getting that fructose too. And when we eat an apple, it will slow the process down a little bit. It will slow the process down a little bit, but we're still going to get an increased amount of sugar. We saw that on the video, right? It's going to make your blood sugar spike. So what can we do to control that a little bit? We can control that by adding something like almond butter. Now, here's the catch with almond butter is that, your nuts and your seeds and those sort of things tend to be a little bit higher in omega-6 fatty acids. So you got to make sure that you're taking your fish oil to offset your almond butter or your pistachios or any of the things that you're going to eat from a nut standpoint. You got to make sure you're offsetting that with your fish oils. But that is one way that you can get the sugar content down from eating the apple. Okay? So that's kind of the fructose glucose combination. White bread is going to give you glucose. So when you eat a piece of white bread, then it's just straight. There's not any fructose in that. It's just all glucose, and it's going straight into your bloodstream. It's going to go really fast. It's going to make your blood sugar spike, but your body's going to use all of it. But you got to get that out of whenever you spike your blood with insulin, with glucose, whenever you spike your blood with glucose, it becomes thick and sticky, and you got to get it out of there. That's where, when it goes through the pancreas releases insulin. And the insulin helps you get your glucose out of there. So if you're a person that's dealing with metabolic syndrome or diabetes, type 2 diabetes, type 2 diabetes is when you lose that control, that insulin to the cell. Here's your cell. There's the insulin receptor. The insulin receptor combination is not functioning properly anymore because it's overused damage. So you want to stop assaulting that cell with all of that glucose. And I had another person today that's on Ozempic, and I said, "What did you have for breakfast?" I had a burrito. What kind of, with a flour for tortilla? Yes. What'd you drink? I drank coffee. What'd you put in your coffee? I put cream and sugar. No. If you're dealing with diabetes, you've got to stop that. You've got to, if you want to get healthier, you've got to stop that. Ozempic is not going to fix that problem for you. It's not. You stop the Ozempic, and 1 year later, you're going to be in the same boat that you're in. If you don't change the way that you eat, then what you're going to end up with is you're going to end up with the same problem down the road. You can't fix that. You can't take a pill and solve that problem. You can't take a shot and solve that problem for yourself and not learn the fundamentals of health. You got to get that fundamentals of health thing going. So what is, I know we're talking about apples, but what is like tortillas, flour tortillas, or corn tortillas are still, you're still going to deal with some of that, but flour tortillas, right? Flour tortillas is just basically like eating white bread. It's the same thing. It's glucose. It's going to make your blood sugar go up. Now you're going to take any of the extra calories that you have from that, and you're going to end up storing those calories in the form of fat. So, and then you're going to get it all into your liver's going to get involved, and there's just all kinds of problems that are going to go on with that, right? Okay, let me get to something else because I really want to make this point. Eating the apple, and pretty much any of the apples. There's some of the apples. The Granny Smith apple has 16 grams of natural sugars. Okay, 22.7 grams of carbohydrates. The Granny Smith apples originated in Australia in 1868. Now, Granny Smith apples aren't as sweet as Fuji apples, right? Because Fuji apples have 27.6 grams of sugar. They're one of the highest sugar content apples. And so you're going to get, if you're going to eat Fuji apples, it's really important that you offset that with some sort of fat or protein. It would probably really help you if you were to do something. The Gala, however you say it, Gala apples, a large one has 20.8. And all the rest of these are pretty close to the same. The Red Delicious has 22 grams of sugar. The Pink Lady has 17 grams of sugar. The Royal Gala has 23 grams of sugar. That one's high too. Sugar Bee has 19 grams of sugar. Honeycrisp has 25 carbohydrates and 19 grams of sugar. So the Macintosh has 19 grams. Cosmic Crisp has 15 grams and 18 grams of sugar. So you're getting these natural sugars, right? You're getting these natural sugars. You're getting lots of fiber that helps the processing of them in your intestinal tract. But one thing I want to talk about before we leave is juicing that apple. That, in my world, and all the knowledge that I have, juicing that apple is not the direction that you want to go. Because if you take that apple and you eat that apple, you're going to get all the fiber that goes with it. Okay? And that's going to slow play all the fructose. If you juice this apple, you're going to get a cup and you're just going to have a little bit of juice in the bottom. So what you're going to have, and you're not going to have any fiber at all. So you're going to have the juice, the fructose, without the fiber. That's not the way God intended you to get the fructose. He intended you to get the fructose with the fiber. That's why He put it in there. Okay? So you're going to have to juice another apple. You're going to have to juice another apple. You're going to have to juice another apple. You're going to have to juice another apple in order to get an 8-ounce glass of apple juice. And all of that right there, now you've got all that fructose, and that's going to your liver. And that's overwhelming because there's no fiber that goes with it. And now you're overloading your liver. So juices cause heart disease and inflammation and all kinds of trouble in your body. They cause them for you and they cause them for your children. The apple is fine. The apple with almond butter is better. The juice from the apple is not good at all. So if you're really apple juice, orange juice, grape juice, any of that juice, I'm not a fan. From a health and wellness standpoint, I'm not a fan of juice. I don't think it's good for you, and you should stay away from it. Eat the apple if you want. Put a little almond butter on there, and it'll make it better. Okay. I hope you learned something about apples. We got about 1 minute left, and I just want to remind you guys of those two things. Hillside Online / what is that? Giving. Hang on a second. Let me find it. Sharing Tree. Hillside Online / Sharing Tree. If you're interested in getting kids gifts, then that's something you can do for Christmas. If you want to give some kids a gift, go to Hillside Online Sharing Tree. You can find out what they need. You can buy a gift for them. And then the other one was the giveaway that they're having. If you guys will go to the Walk by Faith Radio Facebook page, comment thankful, and tag a friend of yours for a chance to win 2 $300 cash prizes. So they're going to give away $300 twice. And it's going to be McDermott at Large and then the Thin Line with Ken Adams. So if you want to go to the Walk by Faith page, Facebook page, text and put thankful and tag a friend, and you got a chance. You'll be entered in the drawing to get $300. Hey, that's all I got for you tonight. Let me see what I got. One text right here from my man JT. You bet. Thank you. Very thankful. You got it. All right. You guys have a great night. We'll be back tomorrow night at 6, and I'm sure we'll talk about something fun. So have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.